Sigrona, Sigrona Tima, and thank the Force. We are here to talk about the return of Andor here on Star Wars News Net Live. My name is Tyler, joined by my good friends Luke the Rail and our good friend Tom from New York. Of course, who better to have in the zone this evening, the Star Wars Newsnet zone, to talk about the first 3 episodes of Andor, the first of 4 arcs that we're going to get across 12 episodes of absolute cinema. Guys, I am so pumped. This is the first show in a while where I'm like, we've had Star Wars that I've been super excited to talk about from the standpoint of like we watched it and happened. Like Skeleton Crew was fine. Like there was some good stuff about Skeleton Crew. If you really love Skeleton Crew, I'm not someone that's ever gonna diminish that, but there's just a level of excitement I gave watching Andor I never got when I watched Skeleton Crew or The Acolyte. So we are going to dive into all 3 episodes from the first, arc that we got, little movie. Luke, you're fresh off of it. You told me you finished it just an hour ago. So I'm excited to get into all of this. I will also have to be honest, guys. I will have the score of the Oklahoma City Thunder playoff game pulled up next to me. So if my mood drastically shifts at any time, let me just refresh the screen real quick. What the hell? It's 28-19 Grizzlies. What are we doing, boys? Let's get it locked in. This is ridiculous. We need to bring out the brooms. We should be sweeping these bums. Okay. How are you guys doing? What is the Star Wars vibe check like for you right now? Because for me, pretty high.
I would say vibe check is going really well. I said to Madison as we're watching it tonight, I said, the episode 1 just started with its foot on the gas. Like we're not really like easing into this season. We finished season 1 and we're just plowing on ahead, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm loving it.
This pedal melt, like there's a stark difference in pace from the beginning of this season to last season. Definitely going to be a different even tone too. I mean, there was a lot more moments where I was laughing these first 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. But Tom, what are your Star Wars vibe check right now?
Well, I was talking to you earlier about this, but I feel like Tony Gilroy is taking us on a master class of filmmaking, not just a TV show, but filmmaking. When you look at the cinematography, the production design, the acting, the music, the costumes, everything is hitting on all cylinders. Like you said, the way it started, just to see just that short little scene with Cassian and I guess her name was Nia in the beginning, and just it's so different from everything that we've seen. Just the way, well, not just that you see the growth in Cassian as he's becoming a mentor and he's showing people he's preaching now the message of the rebellion gospel to new converts, and he's taking that leadership role in the Alliance, which is really exciting to see. But not just that, the pacing, there's so much. It's like we're
gonna get into all of it. So
so we could keep going. But yeah, it's my excitement is through the roof for what we've seen already.
There's a lot to be excited for because overall, just if I were to guess, these will probably be my least favorite of the arcs that is released. And I still really loved what we got on Tuesday. Like I had such a blast watching. If I had to, rank the episodes, I'd probably say the first and the third were a lot stronger than the second. But, the second does what it kind of needs to do for the third to hit. But we'll get into some of that in a minute because I want to start off by just talking about how different this is. Like a moment we need to at least chronicleize here, because this was the first time we've ever had Star Wars dropping like whole arcs for us. Like we had the first 3 episodes of Andor that dropped to start off the show. This is like a new way that Star Wars is doing this from the standpoint of we know this is what we're going to get for the entire show. And I think that's interesting because my perception when I was watching this was a little different, knowing that this is what my experience is going to be each time. And I would love to get just a general rating from you guys here for the first 3 episodes and Luke knows I don't do 7s, but I'm gonna go with I'm gonna just say 8. I almost went 8.5, and I think if this were any other show, I would have given 8.5 or a 9. But I'm going to rank this on the Andor scale, and I think the Andor scale is a little bit different than other scales. Just like when I'm rating High Republic books, I have a high standard for my High Republic books. So if you get like a high grade for me on a High Republic book, that might be different than say your random Dark Horse novel or Dark Horse comic or Marvel comic. So I'm gonna go 8. Solid start. Expecting some bangers here in the future.
And are we ranking the entire arc? Did you just say
arc.
episode 1? Okay.
It's the whole arc.
First arc, I'm going to go with 8.5. I agree with you that this might be our least favorite. Because I think that this was really good. And I know that like the story is going to explode even more than it is because we know we get to Rogue One. So I'm thinking that each arc is going to get better. My prediction is that the final arc will be my favorite. Like we're going to build and build and build. So it's kind of what I'm thinking. So like obviously the first one, loved it, but it's probably going to be better from here on out. So I'm going to go 8.5 because I know I'm going to try to get higher as the season goes on. So as much as I want to give it like a 10 tonight because I loved it, I'll stay with
it was excellent, and we're going to be building. But this arc was more about we had to get all the players had to be put back on the board, and we're gonna set it all up. But they did it with just a riveting level of pace this time that we hadn't seen from the first season until maybe like the very end of the show in a lot of regards. But Tom, we have an 8, an 8.5. Where do you stand here on the Andor scale?
I would agree with Luke. I'm going to go 8.5. I actually had the opportunity just because my daughters and wife were at a concert last night. I was able to watch the arc all again. So I got 2 viewings, and believe it or not, it was even better the second time because I caught a lot of the nuance. I caught a lot of some of the maybe lines that maybe you miss when you're first watching it. I had the subtitles on. I didn't want to miss any detail. Caught a lot of additional things, but I agree with what you guys are saying. It felt like there was a lot of setup. I felt like the arcs, very interesting direction. I love the intercutting of the stories.
Yes.
We'll get into that probably more as we go. But yeah, I'll go with 8.5 as well, with room for what's coming.
Now, standout character for you. Who was the character that you were most drawn to for this arc? We're going to do standout character, and then I want to do like a standout scene, and then we'll just kind of start diving into all of, what these arcs have in store for us. But what was the standout character for you this episode or this arc? I'm going to say episode probably like 1,000 times, even though we got 3 episodes this time. But for me, if you guys want me to go first, as I just threw that on you here, it has to be Mon Mothma for me. Like it has to. You could go any direction, and I 100% would fly with you. The big character that's probably going to be discussed the most this week is Bix, and rightfully so. And we'll get into her arc here in a little bit. But for me, it was Mon Mothma because there was a beautiful scene that broke your heart in the 3rd episode where she confronts Lita at the end, and Mom has set all of this up to where she has got herself in the clear, and the rebellion is going to be able to continue like being funded through what she's doing. But she's willing to, at the very last moment, still, after all this is happening, knowing that this would ruin her, she said, I will throw all of that away, and I will reach out to my daughter one last time and do for her what's best for her. And there's a level of, you have to sacrifice so much of yourself for the rebellion. You need to serve a higher purpose. But this was a mom reaching out to their kid. And there is a level of, as like a parent, even though the entire galaxy is in the balance here with the Empire, the fact that there's still no one more important to her than her daughter, and she was like, I'm willing to put everything on hold and on in jeopardy for her, and then to have her daughter just completely brutally reject her and choose to go down this path that Mon knows is going to lead to a lot of sadness, is going to lead to a lot of bitterness, a lot of heartache, and frankly, lots of loneliness in her life as well, is just absolutely brutal to see Mon Mothma have to go through this. But there was, I think, that needed to give her that almost permission to just go be the rebel leader and say, my family's rejected me, and I have to do what's best for the galaxy at this point. If my family doesn't want me to be there for them, I have to be there for the galaxy. And that was great. And then some of the best shots of the show so far were there, like the one where Lita is laying on the ground crying, and they have the shot from the back, and there's this big room with all the columns, and you had her going in there. Of course, there's this one right here where she looks back into the camera, and then it pans straight to like where Cassian is, or where Bix is looking at the rebels, I think, at the time, or even the dancing scenes. We can get into the costumes and everything there, but with her at the end. But yeah, Mon Mothma for me was the standout character because Genevieve O'Reilly delivered an amazing performance. We saw some of the most impactful parts of the story for her, and it's setting her up perfectly where she needs to be for this like grand finale that she's going to go on over these last 3 arcs.
If I could go next, I totally agree with you. Genevieve O'Reilly gave such a stunning performance in those episodes for many, many reasons. Now that was heartbreaking, especially as a parent of 2 daughters and one who is actually engaged right now. Thankfully, I really like, I love her fiance, but
her fiance is not Davos Golden's son.
But no, but I haven't been too happy with some of the boyfriends I met over the years. So you could feel some of that. It was. I love those moments, and there are some in Star Wars. Let's Padme and Anakin, with Luke with Vader. Let's run away. Let's get out of here. We don't have to go through with this, and they're so heartbreaking. And to see that, those moments with her daughter, but also when just her going in and out, like the way that Luthen would do in the last season, where he'd transform from Luthen the rebel to Luthen the antiquities dealer, and just the change in his and the way he carried himself in his
entire demeanor.
His demeanor, that's the word I was looking for, would change. If you watch the episodes again, pay close attention. I can't talk tonight. Close attention to Genevieve O'Reilly's, just her eyes in some of those scenes, even when Perrin gives his toast and he's talking about all those things, and she's processing all the things he's saying in a different perspective because she knows the road that she's on. And if you look at just even looking into her eyes, you see the conflict there and the sadness and the loneliness, like you talked about. So I just thought that was amazing. And let me tell you, there were other great standout performances, but that one really, I think, was monumental.
Absolutely. Luke, what about you?
I'm going with the titular character. Cassian really had me drawn in this arc because we see him already 1 second in, like first episode. He is a very different, much better character. I don't want to say character. He's just so much more better formed than he was in season 1. Season 1 is the story of how he got to find himself eventually, or he kind of wanted. I just watched season 1, episode 12 on Tuesday, actually, and he tells Luthen to kill him, to end his life, or take him in. He's ready to just end it all. And so to see him in season 2, episode 1, he is preaching to Naya. He is the most knowledgeable person there in the Maya paid brigade. He can fly this ship that no one else has flown before. Like, I really gravitated toward, I was just so wrapped up in seeing him be the person that I've really wanted to see for the past couple of years. Like, he knows himself very well, and he is willing to bring other people on board this journey that he is on, which is awesome. Like I love this rebel story. So to see him also then get to Mina Rao, and he sees the Gazanti class freighter, and he's like, nope, I'm dropping down. What a cool shot. It just drops away, and then you follow him, and he's going through.
I'm still like, I'm sorry, I'm still stunned. You just dropping this is the Gazanti class freighter. Like you saw that freighter and you knew the class of the freighter. I'm sorry, I had no idea. I was like, is that just like a smaller cruiser? Is that a Star Destroyer over there? I don't know. He's like, this is the Gazanti class freighter. And if you are familiar with the freighter class of the Imperial, you will know that this is the Gazanti class C, subsection R from the Geonosian transport facility.
Sometimes I'm too deep, and I just don't even realize it. But
Sometimes
I have to lean on
love
Tyler
it.
to tell me that I'm too much of a nerd. But
No, I love it.
His immediate, like, his love for his friends, his bigs, like, he just played Mina Rao so well, and they got away. Like I love seeing how far Cassian has come between the seasons. Really, like I love where he's at right now, and I can't wait to see where he goes.
It was impressive. One of the Cassian's best moments for me was when he's talking with Clea and she's like, no, you need to listen to me and you're going to go here. And he says, screw it. I'm going home to rescue the family. And that was a moment where we very much knew, and we saw this in the beginning of the episode as well, the first episode of the arc. This show is now Cassian's show in many respects. I think that him being this full-fledged rebel spy, rebel infiltrator, it's going to really turn into Cassian's show as it goes on. And he was overshadowed a lot in season 1, but I don't think we're going to see that as much in this season. I think he's going to be the one bouncing around because we're going to see him with Luthen. He's going to be with Mon Mothma. He's going to be with Bix on all these places. And he's going to be the central figure moving around like everywhere. And the show Andor is actually going to maybe follow Cassian a little bit closer, and he might be a little bit more of the titular character. So I like that. I want to address this comment here. So let's be honest, these 3 episodes were underwhelming and really didn't move the story anywhere. If you are a fan of the season 1 of Andor, I feel like this was very much a faster paced version of what you would have gotten in season 1, and just a faster paced version, because we're picking up a year after the last season ended. We know that we're covering, 3 episodes here. It may feel like the wedding sequence didn't move the story forward, but Mon Mothma having to realize that she's not going to keep her hands clean and sacrificing her childhood best friend and sacrificing her daughter essentially for the rebellion here, and coming into the final version maybe of Mothma we're going to see as she makes her way into the leader of the Rebel Alliance. We saw Cassian interacting with another rebel cell. Now, maybe that was the weak part of the episode for you because he didn't really have much to do in the second episode. It felt like he was just being strung along until he was going to go save the day. But we got a glimpse of what it looks like when these different cells interact with each other, and they don't really know. Like, they're on the same side, but they don't know it. They're going to fight each other anyway, and this cell's falling apart. So we have to build up to an actual rebel alliance taking place. We still don't have that yet. It's just a bunch of splinter cells, and this kind of paved the way for us to do that. We saw that was Yavin in the second episode when Cassian was leaving. So there's a lot of elements that maybe it seemed like the story wasn't moving anywhere, but it was like you're beginning the chess game and you're moving the pawns forward. You're starting to slide a bishop out here. The knight is on the move. You're figuring out the best way to use your queen to attack the enemy. And it felt like all of the sides were circling each other. We saw Orson Krennic. They're getting the Gorman massacre, trial or Gorman massacre squad together to plant the seeds for what that's going to look like. We're going to get into that. So everything is moving forward. I think this was just about setting up the strategy. So that way, once you hit the go button, which is probably the next arc, it's just going to be full-fledged nonstop until the finish line.
One thing I can add to that too is my first gut reaction when I saw all 3 is I thought about that. I thought about the pacing, and I said, maybe they didn't need to have Cassian on, spoiler, Yavin for those 2 episodes. Maybe and in season 1, those different stories probably would have been each an episode. The wedding might have been 1 episode, but I loved, as I watched it again, I really appreciated the cutting, because I felt like also it showed the different class struggles in this whole galaxy. You see the very rich, opulent wedding contrasted with the simple peasant life that Bix and Brasso are living, contrasted with these rebels struggling to just even survive. And I just felt that to me really was powerful. But I understand, Thomas, what you're saying as far as getting any of the big swings yet. We haven't seen that yet. But again, going back to Andor season 1, the first 3 episodes, I felt like just were setting the table and didn't really go into it. So hopefully next week we'll see the seeds that what's going to come from the seeds that were planted.
And these move forward faster than those first 3. And then we got, boom, you were setting up the Aldani heist, and then, Narkina 5. But I love what you said. I had that in my notes about, it reminded me, the great Star Wars battles always had this space battle going on. Tom and I, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did our Space Battles pod. There's the stuff going on in space, and then you have like the land troops going at it in some sort of battle. And then you have, the battle of the Force, and you have the lightsabers. We see this in Phantom Menace with the Duel of the Fates going on. We have Anakin in the skies, and then we have Padme and them leading some troops on the ground, the Gungans going at it. Return of the Jedi, we see this, in the battle for Endor. It's clearly there. It's, Exegol. We see this all over the place, right? In Star Wars. And like you said, this hit on this was the exact same thing, but from like the class structures that we talked about. Like, what does the rebellion look like for those people that are in that wealthy class at the top? What does the rebellion look like for Cassian, who's on the ground fighting the fight? And then just the random people that are just trying to make their lives work in any way they can, but they can't escape the Empire. So that was something that I really want to talk about even more. So are we ready to get into maybe our favorite moment from, the arc? Or do we just want to start going into each episode and go through 1 through 3? It's our first time doing something with 3 full episodes. So I'm open to trying it one way, pivoting next week, and doing something different. There's really, we have, you guys have the floor. Like, do we just want to go episode by episode, or we just want to kind of go characters, bounce around character by character? What do you want to do?
Maybe character by character. It feels like we'll do that sometimes for the timeline show, and it's kind of fun.
Okay. So we've already hit on Cassian. We hit on Mon a little bit. Let's go ahead and let's bounce to our group that's on the ground, because we lost Brasso not tonight. We lost Brasso on Tuesday.
Well, I did.
Or I guess you just lost Brasso. Like
I just did.
45 minutes ago.
About an hour ago, you lost Brasso. And that, that was obviously a deeply emotional pull for our group. We see Will engaging in a relationship. He's starting to mature a little bit. He's got his own love interest, but Bix is the character of the arc in terms of who had the most, maybe, inner struggle and, physical struggle to deal with. And I really want to hear what your guys' thoughts are, because, there was the most intense scene maybe in all of Star Wars when the attempted rape scene with Bix happened. And I thought it was perfectly executed. If you think of the first time we go to that group and she's having the nightmare of Dr. Gorst, and Dr. Gorst looks through that mirror that's in their room, and has a friend. And you fast forward to episode 3 where, as soon as I saw that guy in episode 2 and the way he was acting, I'm like, they're going to go in this direction. And I was just curious. I didn't know how intense it was going to get. Like, how much were they going to show? What were they going to do? But that definitely was the direction it felt like it was going to go in. And then he looks in that mirror, like the same way that Dr. Gorst looks through that mirror. He looks through that mirror right there before he turns on Bix and attempts to force himself on her. And to me, that was the moment maybe of the entire arc where I like you knew for Bix, like this was the no going back portion of her story. Where Antonio Gilroy said in one of his interviews that this was going to be a moment of absolute clarity for Bix, but it's going to be a moment where it's really hard for her to gain that clarity moving forward. And we see how tortured she is at the beginning of the arc. Like she's struggling still from the aftermath of the torture that she received. We see bits and pieces of her trying to come out again as she's, smiling at Brasso or making jokes with Will. And then here she has this Imperial attempting to force himself on him using his total authority and control and lack of supervision to do so with the powers granted to him by the Empire. And at that moment, that Bix, like this is going to be a personal fight for her. Like she will not be able to have that personal clarity and freedom in her life until she has done everything she can to squash and extinguish the fires of the Empire out from the entire galaxy. And I thought that they did a really good job portraying that, and we can get into some of the political ramifications of what that means in like our real world today. But I thought that since they were going to go this direction, and it felt right to go that direction, perhaps I thought that they did a very good job of doing so. But it's difficult to watch, and I don't blame anyone for having if you had a hard time watching that,
then you should have. Yeah,
it's you should have, but it's a difficult. It's difficult. If you didn't have a hard time watching that, you probably have some problems.
I think,
or if you thought of Darth Vader as you were watching that. Sorry.
Well, I think Bix has now been tested and put through the fires of kind of like 3 different trials now. She was mentally tried with the Dr. Gorst and the just mental eradication of her. You could almost say this was definitely a physical trial of her to overcome this man trying to take advantage of her, and for her to win a physical struggle now. And even I would say like spiritual, she's been put through the ringer, because we know the people of Ferrix are so connected to their planet and to their town. And so for her to have to be ripped away from that is something that would spiritually eat at you. So I think there's just so much that's been tested from her, and she's been put through this crucible. And I think going into the rest of the season, she is going to be just like tough as nails. Like there's nothing else that could possibly get under her skin. She almost doesn't even have skin to get under now. Like she is just ready to be like a weapon and like come along. We've seen in the trailers, she'll come alongside Cassian for some of these missions, and they're going to go together to blow something up or do something here. So like, I think what we've seen from her has put her in this perfect place to go with Cassian on missions instead of like staying back, and he'll go out and he'll protect her, and like she's ready to go. And also just like the allegory of they're illegals, and this whole thing that's happening in the United States with like people worrying about their illegality. Like I don't think human life can be illegal, and that's just crazy that it was really well done in Star Wars. That fear.
Oh,
that can be...
we know that you're legal. Do you have your papers? And if not, oh boy, what might happen to you? And having to be on edge the entire time. And there's a level of real life that comes to play when you see people in the country today that are picked apart and put and taken out of their homes and put in places simply for maybe looking a certain way, speaking a certain way, not having this paper or that paper. And this is a prime example of that in this totalitarian regime where there is no like set of checks, balances, anything. And you are completely vulnerable. And she's by herself. And the assistant that is chilling in the Imperial sergeant's vehicle he hears Bix screaming, and yelling does absolutely nothing, because I guarantee you this happens all the time. And this happens routinely. It's not until she hears the sergeant yelling, he hears the sergeant yelling, that he then wakes up and he's like, "Oh, ooh, something's wrong." And the fact like they're blocking comms like from this point, like you're not allowed to talk to anyone. If you even attempt to move from where you are right now, oh, automatic arrest. There is like so many levels of wrong that we're seeing here. And this is Star Wars. This is the war in Star Wars. And this is what happens when there is war. And this is it, frankly, like we're seeing the most vulnerable people groups are, yes, they're the ones being targeted here in Star Wars. Is we're talking about like women being along like on their own with the Gormans that we're going to talk about. They have a natural resource that the Imperials want. And what are they going to do? They're going to do anything they want to extract every possible bit of wealth that they can from them. And then, they don't care about the cost of what they're leaving behind. But Tom, go ahead and jump in here. I've talked.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to mine here. Tony Gilroy, again, the way they crafted the scene, the way that Adria played it was pitch perfect as far as the way it was executed. It made you feel everything you had to feel. It showed the brutality of war. And, it also gave, as you were saying, it had some modern day parallels, which were really chilling. And sometimes when a piece of media does that, it comes off maybe being heavy handed or preachy, right, and just maybe trying to go too hard on a message. But when it's in good hands and they deliver something like this, a scene like that, it's so powerful. And again, excellent performance, excellent execution. Even, from how they choreographed that scene,
right,
was just shot so well. But touching on the other points, when we talked about the class struggle, I love that line that Brasso has that might be a throwaway line, but when I forget the name of the guy who was in charge there. Is it Kel?
I don't remember his name.
He said you have to tell Cassian's boss what's going on here, and then Brass was like, "It's happening everywhere. It's going on everywhere." And Kellen. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, that was
no problem. But that I should have probably made these notes before, but it's going on everywhere. This is what's happening. This is what the Empire is bringing to the galaxy. So it's I mean, there are so many. I think Thomas was talking again about Krennic's scene. Right. That was such an amazing scene, talking about modern day parallels. Just it felt like an evil scene, like from Sterling Cooper and Mad Men. If you've ever seen the show Mad Men, it was like an evil version of one of their boardroom scenes where they're talking about how we're going to play this off. What are we going to? We have this Ministry of Enlightenment that's going to tell the people what to think about Gorman and its people. Or we have, have you thought about using a plague or a natural disaster, and it just,
how evil is that?
Like, oh my gosh.
How evil is that? They're talking about the extermination of, I don't remember how many people they said that would have been like affected, but it was, hundreds of thousands of people. And you have, fat ass Imperial dude that's sitting there eating some desserts at the buffet going, "Well, have you thought about some sort of pandemic or natural disaster?" And they said, "Oh, yes, we have, but we played out the projections and it kind of gets away from us for a while. It's harder to control." And we live in a day and age where there is so much propaganda that is happening like all around us. And it is all about spin. Like, how do you spin this? And we see the Empire, standing up there, and they're like, "Don't worry, like we're gonna talk about how the Gormans are a selfish people that are stealing from the other citizens of the Empire, and they're controlling their resources, making it difficult for anyone else to get some of what they have, and they're you're gonna just start spinning the story. And if you spin that enough, and that's all that the galaxy is seeing, because the Empire controls the media. And something that's important about the media, the media doesn't control exactly what we think, but they do control what we're thinking about in a lot of respects, because it takes you to have to change like the way you think about something. But if you are hearing that message over and over, and that's what you're thinking about, it can change the way that your mindset ultimately operates. And that's what the Empire is going to be flooding through. And I think that helps us rationalize how did the entire galaxy forget about the Jedi in just 20 years or 15 years? Well, you have all of this media propaganda that's going into the Empire. It makes sense that you would have it. I mean, imagine what the difference between, someone that, is literally just listening to OAN or Fox News 24/7, and then like having a conversation with someone that's listening to like, BBC News or something like that on the other day. Like, it's going to be entirely different perspectives, except the Empire controls all of it.
I thought that was an incredible, incredible scene that you can put this into people's line of sight, that like, hey, this media is controlled by a few people and they really want you to think one certain thing. They're not really trying to get you to know the truth. They just want you to think this other certain thing. That is so scary for the real world, that is a reality that we live in. I liked seeing that in Star Wars, that someone who maybe hasn't woken up to that yet can watch that and go, huh, like, I wonder, what was that inspired by? Why did he write that in the show? Oh, like, I would love to see maybe more people kind of realize their class consciousness from watching Andor. I love it. Tony Gilroy is waking people up.
And Oscar has a great quote here, is like, these modern parallels aren't just modern parallels, they're historical parallels. And
oh yes,
we see this throughout history, and I'm trying to remember, it was it the Darth Maul Ahsoka Tano, like Clone Wars, where he says something along the lines of justice or history or something is only written by the power construct that replaces the previous one, or something like that. And it's like, yes, Darth, you nailed it. All right, yes, Maul, yes, Shadow Lord. That is what radicalized me when I was a child, was Darth Maul. So no, like the media propaganda and seeing Krennic be like giddy and excited about this prospect that they have. And let's bring up this comment here about Krennic's scene with Dedra personally selecting her for a job. I wonder how he'll use her for his plans. That's what Thomas says. Dedra is such an interesting character, and Tom, you and Luke have both hit on this before, and I've tried to tell you how much I hate Dedra after the torture scene. But you're like, it kind of builds her up where you're kind of rooting for like the badass, and you're like, oh, she's pure evil. And then what happens with Dedra here is, oh my gosh, this woman is pure evil. She's over here sharing ideas about how to best organize a genocide like it's nothing. And then you go straight into the 180 tonal shift with her, Cyril, and then with Edie when she comes in, and you're almost like you're laughing because these are the funny scenes, but it's with this absolute genocidal fascist that you're laughing for. You're almost rooting for her, putting Edie in her place, and you're like, yeah, let's go. And you're like, wait a minute, this person is the worst. She is the worst person. And I'm like, Tony Gilroy, do not try to do this to me again. No, because I'm not prepared for the fact that she's going to start dropping, nuclear warheads on Gormans.
So, well, one thing I will say, I'm sorry to cut you off, Luke.
No, you're good. You're good.
If you guys have never seen Robot Chicken's Star Wars sketches, you should definitely look them up on YouTube. There's a great one where, in the famous scene, The Empire Strikes Back, when they're on Cloud City and the door opens and Vader's there, and Han Solo tries to shoot him. He takes his gun, and then that whole serious scene, and then the doors close. So Robot Chicken, which is like kind of this, I don't know, it's a claymation sketches that they have. They say, well, what happened at the banquet? And it's just all the like silliest, most awkward conversations. And when you think about stuff like that, you start saying, yeah, that actually, they were actually in that room with Vader. So what happened? And of course, they take it from a comic perspective.
Right.
But, what other Imperial officer do you know that you see this side of them in all of Star Wars? So many of them are one-note characters. And, the evil, like, with exceptions, of course, like there's complexity to some of them. But to see those two sides of Dedra, I mean, I'm not supposed to like her, but I just love the way that she's played. I love the way that she's written. And yeah, she's a great character.
Tell me you were not jarred whenever she smiled there, where she was holding up the dress. Like she smiled. It was just, we've never seen her smile in a way that wasn't sadistic.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the thing that really works for me with Dedra, and the reason I find myself rooting for her, is that she's played off against like Blevins in season 1.
Right.
When we do not like that guy. Honestly, she's played off against Cyril in many instances where you're kind of, Cyril's on the right track. He's getting close to tracking down Andor, and she is trying to tamp him out. And that's why you're like, okay, well, at least like I have a reason, small, to root for her.
Yeah.
That, like she might derail the thing. And so, no, like she's taking on the Gorman project. That's horrible. She's a bad person. But what else is she doing in this arc? She's kind of like defending Cyril from this mother who is
so good.
mean to him. His mother is not a nice person to Cyril, Edie Karn. And to see her grab hold of, oh my gosh, to see her grab hold of that situation, I was like,
did you not laugh out loud at this?
I laughed
great.
at that. I liked seeing her stand up to someone who is like manipulative and oppressive. I was like, she is also manipulating like populations of people, but like she's fighting for Cyril, and I don't even like Cyril, but she's stopping something bad happening to him, and I can at least go, okay, like that's kind of nice. She's nice to him.
This is so good. Just all the memes from this. Then
yes.
Good. It was so funny, and I'm laughing out loud. It was just perfect.
I don't want to be like everything, like praising Tony Gilroy for this and that, but can you imagine pitching that? Like, okay, we're gonna have this character, and he's gonna be going head to head with his mother, like in Star Wars. Like, can you imagine? You're like, sometimes I've read a lot of the behind the scenes stuff with Lawrence Kasdan and Lucas going back and forth. Well, how should we do this with Luke and the end of Return in the third act? But can you imagine, like, just the confidence he goes in with this? Say, this is what we're going to have.
100%.
We're gonna have this horrible Imperial officer. We're going to have this ambitious but kind of, I don't know, loser that but lovable. And he's gonna have this crazy mother, and we're gonna put this Imperial officer and this guy in a relationship. It's bonkers, but it works so well.
It was so good. I can't wait to watch more of them. I think we got the perfect amount of the two of them sprinkled in together. We got to see what Dedra is going to be doing with Krennic a little bit more, what her role is going to be, and one of these people is going to turn coat. I think it's going to be Cyril. I think he's going to start pivoting towards the rebellion in some way. I'm starting to lean that direction. I think Dedra's going to go all in, and she's going to live and die by what happens with the Gormans, and she's going to die hopefully at some point. But that's the direction I'm going in.
I kind of got the feeling like she didn't want the Gorman job, and I think that's going to cause her to. I think that's going to trickle all the way down to her becoming completely disillusioned with the Empire. I don't think she's going to become a rebel and join the rebels. I think she might just disrupt their plans because she clearly wants to go for Axis. She's not allowed to do that. That's not her job anymore. And she doesn't have a passion for the Gorman project, and she's going to be forced to do it. And I think that's going to cause disillusionment in her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's going to maybe intentionally like disrupt and destroy what's going on Gorman. Like maybe even make sure that the Empire can't salvage anything from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm thinking with Dedra. I'm
I
also
hope
fascinated
maybe.
by her because she seems like someone who, like, she'll do good things, like
Right.
for Cyril. I think she might just be someone who
She'll do good things
enjoys.
for Cyril, I guess. So, yeah, the phrase that with Cyril, I was gonna be like, name one good thing she's ever done in her entire time on Star Wars.
She enjoys her job. I don't think she enjoys what the job is. She
Hold on, stop. She enjoys her job, but she doesn't enjoy what the job
she
is.
really
Like,
likes to please her bosses. Like that's what it is. And I think
but pleasing her bosses is resulting in like, hey, guess what? Stole a bunch of
she needs woken
stuff
up.
from these peasants over here. Hey, discovered someone said a bad word about the emperor over there. Hey, don't worry, he's dead now. We got it.
It kind of falls apart with the whole Dr. Gorst, and she really liked torturing Bix. So I don't know. There's not a lot there, but
She's into opera.
I want her to be not a bad person.
That's where
It's
you guys
hard
are
to see
wrong.
that.
She's always going to be a bad person. We need to accept it.
Well, I imagine in the scenes we've seen on Gorman, I assume she moves there. So does Cyril go with her? Because he was shown in some of those scenes as well.
Yeah, he's on Gorman. He definitely is going to go. That's
So
where he's gonna.
I guess they move from Coruscant to Gorman. So it's interesting to see. I don't know yet what's going to happen, but it's interesting to see how that carries out. If Cyril gets to see, he doesn't really know what Dedra does.
Right.
So if
Right.
he gets to see up close and personal what she's doing and what is happening, and maybe catches wind of how this was planned out, it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that.
So let's pivot to Cassian a little bit more. I want to talk about his time on Yavin with the rebel cell from Maya Pei that was split. My one critique of that arc was just that it felt like we had to waste time a little bit with Cassian because we needed him to come save the day on Mina Rao at the end of the day, and we had to kind of give some stuff for him to do. But ultimately, if you kind of need this, it's not filler, but this little time, for him to be away, and it makes sense. Holy crap, we're setting the stage for Yavin 4 because it turns out it's Yavin. And I think that it was actually pretty great the way that Tony Gilroy did this. Like, you kind of, personally, I have to assume that there's not a lot of just casuals watching Andor at this point. And if you are, maybe you don't know that that's Yavin, but that had to, even like the casual Star Wars fans, I feel like, have seen A New Hope so many times, that had to trigger something in your brain, perhaps, to make you wonder, woo, is this a planet I've known before and looked into it? But talk about an incredible way to close that part out as he's flying away, and you get the little temple thingies. I don't know what those things are called, but just the stuff from Yavin that you instantly
Ziggurats?
recognize. Yes, that's right. That's right. I thought that was fantastic. So take me into that arc in your guys' heads. Personally, I was never sold on these Maya Pei rebels. I don't know why. It just feels like they're, and this is probably intentional, but every other cast member flows into their roles so well. And I just absolutely believe in 100% who they are. Like Luthen, like Skarsgård, I never doubt for a second, that he is Luthen Rail. Vel, Cinta showing up at the end, Ma, Cassian, Bix, Brasso, Cyril, Dedra. I can go on and on and on. Critic, of course, but I don't ever doubt them for a minute there. I've never taken out of a scene by something that they're in, but for whatever reason, the Rebels, it felt more like they belonged in an episode of Mando sometimes, where it's just like these corny guys going back and forth. But there's a level of me that believes that this is intentional. Like, these are like the grunt soldiers of the rebellion. These aren't the Cassians who are going to be sent on missions to go infiltrate, high security Imperial areas. Like, these are what every rebellion needs, every army needs. Soldiers that can follow orders of a strong leader, don't really need to think necessarily, and they just go on. I don't think they're going to show up again, but we'll see.
I think the main point of it was to show the how fractured the rebellion is at this point.
Absolutely. Like, they don't
underscoring. Yeah, Saw call them out in that great speech in season 1 when he says they're lost. Maya Pei, the New Republicans, and he mentions the Gorman Front, I forget who the other people he mentions, separatists, and they're lost. And I think they're trying to underscore that. And I think it was a unique way. I don't know if it was my favorite arc, but to me it made sense.
Right.
I maybe felt like maybe it should have been one episode, but I'm curious to see. Again, I like the intercutting. I felt like that flowed very well between what on Minarao, on Chandrilla, and that I thought flowed very well as far as the editing. So maybe to me it felt a little long, but I think it matched with those other arcs.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think, and it's also showing Cassian that he is growing. I mean, we've seen so much growth. He's becoming the man that we meet in Rogue One, but even he at this point can't bring those factions together. I know they were very suspicious of him, and he landed in an enemy TIE fighter. So
I was curious to see how they end that suspicion altogether, because we know that the Rebel Alliance is not been formed yet. There's just a bunch of these rebel splinter cells, that they're these just fractured groups, and ultimately we're going to see an alliance formed. And I'm curious to see if that's going to culminate with Mon Mothma's speech coming up with the Gorman Front and her kind of being the central leader for the rebellion. And that's something that can galvanize them together to get to this. We know she has to get there to this meeting, and Luthen's going to be the one to ultimately organize that meeting. And we're going to see like Mon Mothma there, Bail Organa. That's when Bail might show up a little bit in this show. And we kind of see the meeting that takes place after where she is at in Rebels. That could be like a pivotal moment, because it was interesting to see that, they are killing each other, but they're all on the same side. And the Empire is only growing stronger at this point. So, Luke, where are you at with, you're as big into Rebels, Star Wars Rebels as anyone I know. So knowing that, ultimately we're going to see the alliance be formed, and we've kind of seen what the different splinter cells are like through the lens of Rebels to some degree. This is obviously a much darker tone, but I'm curious what your thoughts were with that. I will say the best meme I saw of this was like Maya Pei just died having to try to lead these fools around for so long.
I will say I was a little bit more positive on it than probably most people, because I do enjoy seeing the different factions of the Rebel Alliance before they are the Alliance. And so we know that they don't like each other and don't get along. They don't immediately easily coalesce. Like, they have to really work to make this Rebel Alliance even come together in the first place. We see Phoenix Squadron struggle with that in Rebels, like Kanan Jarrus, my favorite character in Star Wars, pretty much struggles to accept new people into the cause, people that are on his side. Right. It's incredible, because I thought it showed how much Cassian's history with Kenari growing up that way, very like primitive, showed off, because he's like, hey, it doesn't rain forever. You're gonna want to get that tarp and actually trap some water. Do you hear that beast? What kind of beast are out there? No. Yeah, like, let's not go out there. It's
approximately 6 meters. They will be close.
Yeah, 50 centimeters per hour. They're gonna be close by midnight. So like he proved how much he knows and how in the know he is. These people are killing their own people, and they're willing to kill other rebels, being Cassian. And I just thought it was kind of a really good, just like example of like leftist infighting. Like, all this group of people in our real world like want to fight against authoritarianism and fascism, but like they fight themselves almost more than they can fight the real problems. So it's real. It really happens. And I love to see that artistically done in Star Wars.
Seeing the Rebels, and then it's ironic that our first live action sequence where we're seeing Rebels fighting other Rebels taking place on Yavin 4 was the irony of that. I thought was really well done. So I'm excited to see them go back to Yavin and create a base there after Cassian, lets him know where he was and talking about that. Let's get into Luthen a little bit and everything surrounding the wedding, Take Homa. When we talk about this, I have to just say that the sequences with the music, the Neomos music, and just having them walking around, that music's playing, just the looks. Like they're not even saying much at this point, but you're just seeing the looks from the crowd. Mon's taking her drinks, but the way Luthen is just scouring the crowd, his eyes are on Take Homa. He's taking in everything. From the wedding sequence of him putting on the showmanship of being the just the wealthy entrepreneur, the wealthy businessman, the lover of ancient artifacts, just to get the tea and the information from people. And then he pulls behind. He's like, "Ah, yes. Where are you heading next?" And then he pulls Mon aside and he goes, "We must pull together. This is what you must do." It's so good to see like the different layers of Luthen come out. And then Clea. Oh my goodness, Clea's going to have a larger role this season, and seeing her as the perfect little like sidekick or almost just lieutenant to Luthen. She's like the perfect one. She keeps him in check. She keeps him balanced. She keeps his emotions, relegated to where they need to be, to check his intentions that are maybe good but could lead to disaster.
Absolutely. She's wanting comms and they can't do comms, and he's kind of, well, that's more important. You need to do the comms, and that forces her to leave and go back to Coruscant by herself. Like the relationship between those two is so kind of like razor sharp, where like you fall to one side and it's a sharp fall. So I don't know, I think she's going to get put through the ringer much more than she was in season 1. I think we've seen some scenes from the trailers that she is really breaking down, really losing it. Because she doesn't have control over much, even him at this point, where even in season 1, it's you're not helping me, you're slipping. Like she's got to give it back to him. And he's, I think, he's going to have a point where he's not even going to listen to her anymore and not even take advice from her that is very sound.
Really?
I think so.
Talk more about that.
Oh, go ahead, Luke.
I'm just saying, I'm curious. Like, I want to, where's that? Like, I haven't seen that coming. Like, that would be really surprised because he seems to, like, their bond just seems to be so close. So, like, they really
it does
work well together. But
they're like a couple in a way.
They are.
She can kind of really get through to him as far as this is a bad idea or we should be doing this. And I feel like she's the only one that he listens to.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a breakdown, that would be interesting. I'm curious to see
I think that might be his demise, is that there's going to become a point where he finally stops leaning on her for whatever reason. Maybe she's giving him advice that like, this is not a good idea, pull back. And he's like, this is now or never, I'm pushing. And that's going to break them apart. And that's going to leave him with no true support. He's not got anyone who knows him the way that Clea does. And that will lead to his demise. He's going to put himself in some situation where he exposes himself and gets killed in a line of fire or gets captured or something. So I think the relationship there is going to tell us how he meets his demise. Okay. Should he die in season 2?
When he dies in season 2, yes.
We don't know.
I don't want him to, but I just he's so prominent. Yeah. But who knows? Who knows what Tony has up his sleeve? So we'll see.
I know something though, is that Take Homa went and met a tragic accident at the end of this arc, and thank goodness he did. What a freaking loser, an absolute loser. And I'm gonna rant about Take Homa for a minute because Take Homa, I'll be honest, is one of the worst humans in the galaxy. In the entire galaxy, he's one of the worst humans. You know why, Luke? You look at me like I'm crazy, but you know why?
I don't even necessarily disagree with you, but I'm curious why.
Because, this is someone who's born into wealth and privilege, and he is someone that when he first enters the scene, there is, I I liked this character, and I was a little bit surprised to see the direction he went season 2. But as I was watching it, I'm like, no, this makes perfect sense. He enters into the scene, and there's some level of like self-righteousness that he, has of, oh man, you spent all your time in Coruscant. Like, my politics might be a little bit strong for your taste at this point, and agrees to help Mon Mothma out. And he's not a moron. He knows what she's funding. She's funding this rebellion. He is very much in this. And sure, I'm okay doing this at this point in time. It's not hurting me, but the moment that he receives a little bit of hardship financially, where it hurts in his pockets, suddenly he's out. He has to go and talk to Skolden. He's threatening Mon for, trying to extort her for money, because he's like, what's in it for me here? And frankly, those type of people are some of the worst people in Star Wars, the galaxy, in the real world in general, that, will give off this breath, this aura of benevolence, and I'm gonna take a stand for what's right. It's just like a politician that's gonna go and make the rounds with the constituents of, I'm fighting for you. Yeah, sure, I'll keep fighting for you as long as my job is secure. But the moment push comes to shove, and they receive a little bit of pressure from their biggest donors of, oh, we might start supporting this other candidate. Oh, suddenly that vote turns into something else. And Tay Colma is just the perfect example of what, I guess this elitist mindset might be in the Empire. And it reminds me too, there's like a level of, if you read Princess and Scoundrel, I know like Star Wars books, oh my goodness, what's he talking about? But if you read Princess and the Scoundrel, it's about Han and Leia taking a vacation post Return of the Jedi, like on their honeymoon. And it's supposed to be like a publicity stunt to show that the rebellion has won and their legitimate, republic is, the republic is legitimate. And there's all these people that Leia's talking to that are getting her opinion on the galaxy or different things. And Leia realizes like none of these people really care at the end of the day about the everyday people of the galaxy. All they care about is, are their pocketbooks full, and do they have food on the table in abundance, and are they able to take their luxury vacations? And when you take away some of those things, guess what? They really are just gonna back the winning side. And I think that's what we see with Tay Colma in the end. And that's why, I hope that Cinta opened the door, gave him a swift kick in the ass, and said, see you later, as he fell down the cliffs of Shandrilla.
I think in the back of my mind, yes, I agree with a lot of things you said. He was looking for what was in it for him. But I think part of that was, I think he wanted to rekindle what he had with Mon Mothma too. I think that was part, I thought he felt like that was part of the, in his mind, maybe that was what part of the deal was. He was quick to go and help her. And I think, again, selfishly,
you're talking about like relationship wise?
Yeah. I think maybe
worse.
Yeah. No, but
he's a married man too. And
right.
He's even more so, like even worse. Add that to the list of reasons why he's the biggest scumbag in the galaxy.
And I don't know. I mean, there was a chemistry between them. And I mean, obviously it's there that they were, was it said officially that they were together, or they were like old friends?
Old
friends. Because I know that she was very young.
Maybe sort of like high school type crush or something.
Yeah.
She married so young, but it's definitely, there's definitely something there. In season 1, you see the vibes, and Perrin even says like, oh, you haven't taken him as your lover? Like, the road's clear for you now.
It's like there's that person, maybe an old ex, that like maybe your significant other will always say, oh, so such and such, I saw you liked one of her pictures or something, like, so it was interesting dynamics, but I thought they were going to play more on that. Right. However, I guess it turned out the way that you said, that he was just, he didn't get what he wanted. So he was a loose cannon at that point. He was drinking, he was hanging out with Skolden. So like he probably would have blown their cover.
Like I get it. Maybe this didn't work out the way you wanted, but in the end, it seems like he wasn't in this for. He didn't have the balls to join the rebellion. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I was going to join your side, Tom, that I got the feel that there was an unrequited love there, that he wanted a romantic connection kindled with Mothma, that like maybe he didn't explicitly say or even start out with, but I do think that developed in him throughout that time, which you're not entitled to, dude. Like, you're married, she's married.
Right.
Are both of you happy in your marriages? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Like, in our world, marriage doesn't work that way. So I'm going to assume that it does in Star Wars. So no, like
to even have the assumption though that like, hey, like,
yeah,
I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Scummy. Yeah.
But no, so I'm hope that I hope that Cinta gave him perfect assassin Cinta treatment on his way out. No, I'm going no redemption arc for Take Homa. Meaningless character, worthless human being. Get him out of here. He was the final stage. I mean, Mon Mothma had her last little party after that because she was, taking shots of whatever they were doing, whatever they were having there on Chandrila for the wedding, because she was like, all right, one last hurrah, and then it's down to rebellion business. And that line that Luthen has when he's basically saying like, we must keep you protected, and he's saying like, we might need to kill this guy. And I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but
it was perfect. Yeah.
So
what did he say?
That you don't know. Yeah, I forget how he worded it.
Exactly. I don't know. What are you saying? I don't know what you're saying. And he said something along the lines of how nice for you.
Nice
yes,
for you.
that you don't know. It's just, oh man,
That's a great line.
Mm-hmm. So I get him out of here. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap up here is that look that Perrin gave Mon when she's like going crazy at the end. She's going drinks, she's dancing and everything. He was like, "This I can get with this Mon right here. I can get with this." Like
he's finally loosening up.
He was like, "Oh, okay. Like I like what I see here." I'm like, "Oh, Perrin." Like he was the one. It was just funny the way he looked at her like that.
There was some great memes from that too. I don't know if you saw any of those.
I need to go look for some. But Sentai showing up at the end, that was a good one. I was wondering if we were going to see her in this arc, and then she showed up at the end, and then Bell obviously having that brief look there. But let's close off. We lost Brasso. We've talked on this show. I said that I thought he was going to die this first arc, but we all kind of felt like if he survived the first arc, that he might make it through to the end. But how do we feel about Brasso and in his time, in Andor, and the way that his character got its conclusion?
He's such an incredible friend to Cassian, and for him to take care of Cassian's friends and also become their very good friends, like you really can't ask for a more stand-up guy than Brasso, who looks out for the locals. Like he's trying not to get the people who are protecting him in trouble. He's trying not to be a burden. He's trying to just do his job, move on. Let's not get caught being illegals here. He's such an amazing person. He takes care of Marva for so long in season 1. Oh my gosh. I didn't shed tears, but my eyes teared up so much watching Cassian cradle him. And I was like, oh no, he's breathing, right? He's coming back.
Right.
He's not. Oh, he's not alive. Oh,
the
it's
way
just,
that was heartbreaking.
It was kind of made it like awkward. I was like, I didn't want to cry. Like, I almost didn't feel as emotional as I thought I would. I think part of it was just the way that the party scene was happening. I was taking all of that in, and it was going back and forth and everything. To me, I'll be honest, the saddest part for me was the fact that B got left behind.
Yeah. I didn't realize that until
poor B2 emo. He's all alone.
My fiance was like, they just left B2 emo behind. And I went, no, they did. I was like, no.
It's so sad.
It's sad to think too when B finds out what happened,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like did he see the battle? Like, does he have eyes? Was he looking around? Did he sense anything going on? I don't know. Well, I don't even know. Like, how does he see his surroundings? I don't know what B's made of necessarily. I don't understand droids really. So that's just me though. But
Which is why we need Droid Story.
my last question. This will be the last thing we could talk about tonight. Do we get K2SO next week?
I don't think so, because I think Tony explicitly said we're not going to see him till later. If from what I heard was true, we're not going to see him. It's not really a spoiler because he said it, but at Celebration, I believe he said we're not going to see him till like episode 8.
What are you doing to me, Tony?
I know. I feel like it's kind of late in the show, but when you think about it, there's still 4 episodes left at that point. So it's building up to that. So
no, I just want as many Cassian K2 adventures as possible.
You want to see them running through those fields on
I want to see on Yavin those little beasts coming and K2 just punches one in the face. What I want to see. I was hoping that maybe the end of the next arc would be like when they like get K2 to like reprogram him, and then it would flash forward and we'd see him like in the next one. Like he'd be like in episode 7, maybe with like the very start of that, we would kind of get the story with him moving forward. But maybe I'll have to wait a couple more weeks. I guess I can do that. But
do you want to do any more predictions?
I don't know. I kind of just want to let the next one ride out a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do like a halfway point, like prediction mark. Let it ride out too.
There's so much story left to be told. So
it's so good. Oh, yes, go. All right. Good. Quick vibe check here. Basketball is stupid. Okay, basketball is stupid as we round up here because the Thunder are losing by 25 to the Memphis Grizzlies, and I'm gonna go punch a hole in my wall as soon as this show is over. I'm gonna go grab a couple bricks and, like, in honor of Brasso, just start laying waste to anyone in my path. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. For Light and Life, everyone, it's been a pleasure. Tom, thanks for hopping on. Luke, thank you for finishing the last Andor episode right before we were able to get on to chat tonight. Always like and subscribe to Star Wars News Net. Thank you for hopping into the live stream tonight. We'll see you next week, Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I've said it for 2 weeks now, but I promise Luke and I are going to record Tempest Runner episode 47 of the Timeline Show. It's going to happen this week. Guaranteed this weekend. Paul and I had scheduling issues. We couldn't figure it out, but we'll do something in the realm of early week podcasting, I think. I just have to figure out what that's going to look like. But figure something out. But we'll see. No worries. For Light and Life, everyone.
Sagrona Tima.
And remember, we are all the Republic.